this power, wouldn't it? Well, first of all, a welcome to the members of the public tonight, to the Planning Committee. If you've not been before, just to make you aware that outside to the left there is a toilet and there is also a drinks machine. Unfortunately, you've come on the wrong night. There's no tea or coffee, it's just water. Also, wish to welcome all the members of the Planning Committee to this new civic season, as it were. I hope we can all work well together. There's going to be some very controversial, very important applications that we're going to have to face, and I will rely on your cooperation as we pursue this new year together. So first of all, welcome to also our officers. I can't pretend to know everyone personally, so we've got Mark Simmons. I think, is this your first meeting, Mark?
No, I attended the meeting in May, so it's my second meeting.
Thank you, Mark, because I wasn't here on that occasion. We've got Gina Houghton, Rosie Dinnan, and our council solicitor, who is the cleverer one, not me, is James Cunningham. So welcome, James. And we are totally dependent on Angela. So again, Angela, thank you for setting up everything for tonight's meeting. So first of all, can I take from members, are there any apologies for absence you wish to have recorded?
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Edward Walker and Councillor G's substitute.
So welcome to Councillor G on substituting for Councillor Walker. In the light of that, are there at this point, in terms of number 2, approval of minutes of the previous meeting? Now they are found on pages 9 to 14. Is there anything from those minutes that members wish to comment or raise? If not, would someone be prepared to move? Is that seconded, that these minutes are a correct record of what there and thereon took place? Thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Slack, seconded by Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please show. And that appears to be unanimous. Sorry, one abstention. Thank you. In terms of interests, do any members wish to, at this point? Councillor Hughes?
Chair, yes. Regarding the enforcement, one of the enforcement cases, I unknowingly talked to the person who the enforcement notice was served on in Ashbourne last Friday. I didn't understand it was going to come to this committee meeting. I just wanted to declare that in the interest of transparency.
So, James, is there anything further? Is that fair enough that Councillor Hughes has declared that? It seems a pretty innocent, scenario. So that's okay. That's okay. Thank you, David. No other interests at this point. Angela, we move to section 4. Are there any, at this point, people in terms of public participation, or are we just leaving it to the normal applications? Yes. Lovely, thank you. So members, we'll get to the meat of the matter. Applications for determination, which is number 5 on the agenda. Some members yesterday visited all these sites that are on the agenda, and the first one for consideration is the erection of 2 numbered commercial units, Homesford Tea Rooms, Derby Road, Homesford, Matlock. That's found on pages 15 to 28. And in this case, the officer will be Mark. Thank you. Would you kindly take us through, or there's no one to speak on this, is there? No. Yeah, so it is you, Mark, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is for a blacksmith's workshop It's a utilitarian building. It would be in profiled sheeting with a utilitarian roof with the name of the business on the roof, similar to the tea room. Couple of very quick minor corrections before we go any further. It's in the late representations notice. In the officer's report, condition 2 has a technical error. There is a more updated site plan, which I understand members were aware of and did confirm they were aware of at the site visit yesterday. It's just revision B, dated 11th of April 25 for the correct site plan, which is in the presentation. And then the second correction, which I've picked up on, obviously I've only just joined the council, so I'm picking up some of these cases quite late in the day, but condition 4, if members are minded to approve, condition 4, which requires a noise report, I think the condition would need to be slightly reworded to actually give the council the power to enforce the condition. As it's currently worded, I don't think it's quite correct. If you just bear with me. So I would propose, if members are minded to approve, amending condition 4 to say, before the building first comes into use, a noise assessment should be submitted in writing, etc., and then to end with, the agreed measures shall be fully implemented at all times. So it's in the open countryside. It's in the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site, which is of outstanding universal value. I think it's about as high a heritage value as you can find in this country. Value the heritage allocation. However, the Conservation Officer of the Council and the statutory bodies raise no objection. The Council's Conservation Officer is entirely content with the design and considers that there's a material benefit to introducing heritage skills into the area in terms of a blacksmith's workshop. The application site is hard surfaced and has housed buildings over many years and is considered to be previously developed land. So although the site is in the countryside, it's a business, it's a rural business on previously developed land, so in principle there is no conflict or issue in officers' minds. There's been a full set of consultations carried out, which is set out in the committee report in full, and the relevant bodies either don't object or just require conditions. If we could just go on to the elevations, please, Gina. So it is utilitarian, it is profile sheeting, and then on the roof, I'm not sure how clearly that will come out, the name of the business would be on the roof slope facing the A6, and it is considered to be of a size and scale and design that is in keeping and works on that site. We don't consider it over-dominates or takes away from the setting of the tea rooms, which are listed in their own right, and it sits on its own curtilage on the old car park, hard surfaced area. New car parking is provided. Can we just go to the site plan, please? And following comments from highways, vehicles have been tracked, ranging from standard cars up to 7.5 tonne vehicles, and highways are content they can move around the site safely and leave the site in forward gear, which is the main test for safe manoeuvring. There's landscaping shown, new planting shown, which would be an ecology benefit and uplift. The application isn't affected by biodiversity net gain because it's being built on a hard surfaced area, but there is still policies that require ecology enhancements, which are shown on that plan, so that's a benefit to the scheme as well. Neighbour amenities being considered, and with the distance across the A6 to nearby properties, as shown on the plan, and then the properties the other way, the distances are considered satisfactory to ensure that there wouldn't be a loss of amenity, and condition 4 requires a noise assessment that then would be enforceable to absolutely protect amenity. So, in summary, officers have considered the application very carefully. It is not considered there will be a significant impact on the residential amenity. We consider the proposed building is acceptable in design terms, would not cause unacceptable heritage harm, and there is actually a heritage benefit of reintroducing traditional skills into the local area. And we consider that heritage issues have been suitably appraised, and that the application would be in compliance with the conditions, and we note the Highways Authority has no objections. So on that basis, we recommend the application for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark, for outlining that. I don't know why it was I thought this would have come under Cromford, but it's Wirksworth. Now, it'd be interesting from those that actually went on site, is there anything anyone would like to ask or convey to the committee? Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just mention about car parking. The cars will park in that vicinity of the new building, or can they park anywhere on going on towards the new building?
Mark, can you respond, please?
So the plans show that 12 spaces for the
12 places.
are retained, and the plans show 10 new spaces for the blacksmiths for parking, which seems generous considering, reading the reports, if there's 3 people in the building, that's probably like to be the general amount, with some deliveries, some pickups, so the parking and manoeuvring spaces do seem to be adequate. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. Question for Mark. Due to the nature of the business being carried out on the site, do we know if there's an increased standard of soundproofing going to be installed in the new structure?
Yep, that's a very good question, and that's exactly the key point. That condition 4 requires a noise assessment, and then, as amended, if committee are minded to approve, it requires a noise assessment and mitigation scheme detailing measures that will be implemented to ensure that any noise of the development does not cause detriment to amenity or a nuisance, especially to those living or working in the vicinity, and that should be undertaken by a suitably qualified acoustic consultant, which would then be scrutinised by our environmental health team. So I think that's a fairly strong safeguard to make sure they do build in the mitigation that's required into the building.
Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, could that be a bit extra added on that it's done before construction takes place? Because if it's being built, some insulation can be built in as part of the construction rather than when it's too late before occupation.
Mark, will you respond, please?
I'm completely happy to change the wording of the condition to say before development commences and before the building first comes into use, so we just completely cover it, that it's absolutely nailed down before they even start work, and then before the building comes into use, the measures are in place.
Yeah, thanks for that, because it's too late once it's built and you're going backwards then. So thank you.
The co-vice chair would like to comment, and then Councillor G. Councillor Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. Because this application is on a very busy, noisy road, was any consideration being given to some kind of buffer on that side of the application site, something like a hedge?
Thank you, Councillor. That's a good question. I think that because the A6 is a busy and noisy road, that was felt as a barrier between the business and neighbouring properties. But if that was seen as a benefit by committee, we could certainly add a condition to require a landscaping scheme on that frontage for officers to negotiate through a condition.
Okay at that, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Councillor G.
Is that working properly
Yes.
now? This new device? Yeah. I think this, on face value, I think this looks an exceptional, positive development. And you know, whilst it is in so-called countryside, that is an area that's always been active, because the Homesford cottage, I live at Cryche, so I come down the A6, and from my boyhood I remember going to Homesford cottage, and recently it's not been quite the same. The fact that there's no residents from Homesford here to complain about it tells me that it isn't a big issue by the looks of things. Just one question, is the actual blacksmith's activity attached, is it connected with the cafe? Or is it a separate ownership and entity?
To the best of my knowledge, it's a separate entity, it's a separate business.
Yeah, so on the basis that it's bringing new economic activity in terms of a heritage type activity into Derbyshire Heritage Corridor, that sounds absolutely fantastic, and I totally support it. One sort of health warning on it, when I look at the actual way that they've positioned it and the parking, what we wouldn't want in the future is the blacksmiths to cease trading and then they're wanting to turn it into something completely different that probably wouldn't be supported now. I know that's something we can't, but it's just like a little note to say, yes, this looks good in what they're asking for tonight, and I can definitely support it, but you know, you wouldn't want it within 2, 3, 4 years time to be something completely different that was attached to the existing business. But besides that, I think it's good, and I'll definitely be supporting it.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor. Yeah, I suppose fundamentally, Mark, we can only judge what we've got before us, the actual application, even though we take on board what you're saying, Councillor G. Do you wish to comment further, Mark?
No, that's absolutely correct, Chair.
Yeah.
We're judging and assessing what's in front of us today, so
yeah.
a material change of use that didn't fall within the use of, if this was approved, would then need a further planning application.
As members can see, we've got a recommendation of approval. Would anyone like to actually move something at this point? Councillor Hughes.
Chair, yes, I'd like to move it. It is on a noisy road, and that will provide some contrast to the noise that a blacksmith might generate, and perhaps mask the noise. So I feel that that's perhaps not as important an issue as it might be in some areas, although out of hours working might, or weekend working might could cause some problems. In terms of hedging along the front of the property, at the site visit we discussed that yesterday, and the applicant said that they needed the space for vehicle movement to turn the vehicles round, and they really didn't want to put any planting along there. So, and again, I mean, I think if you wanted to actually shield the site, it might be better to make a higher wall, but the wall is above the level of the roof, up to the level of the eaves anyway, and so it will provide some sound mitigation, I think. And the owner of the blacksmith himself is the son of the person who has the cottage, the cafe. So I think it's a family expanding their business interests on the same site.
Thank you, David. Councillor Slack, and then Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll like to second this, Chair. I think it's can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's an ideal business. It's to Heritage A6, so it fits in nicely with the area. So I think it's a really good addition to this area. And they did say on the site visit yesterday they'll be increasing planting of trees, so that's good. So yeah, I'm pleased to second it.
I'd like to bring in Councillor Peter Dobbs, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was simply going to second it, but echo what people have said, especially what Councillor G is saying. It is new industry coming into the Dales, which is excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Again, happy to support this. I think it's a wonderful venture for somebody young taking this step, and it's nice to see such skill being kept in the Derbyshire Dales.
Yeah.
And I know it's not the normal case, but when we was on site visits yesterday, the gentleman showed us some photos of work which he'd done, and outstanding. So I wish him every success and fully behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lees. I think we've had a good debate. We've got a motion before us. So can I test the motion now? It's been moved and seconded that we approve this application. All those in favour, please show. And that appears to be unanimous. Thank you, members. So we will move on to the second application, found on page 29 of the agenda, and we have one speaker that's going to address us, which I think is the agent, Anita Punjard. Anita, I understand you're going to obviously speak in favour of the application. If you'd like to come...
Just warn her that she's being filmed.
And I have to warn you, you're being filmed if you have any objection. Right. And even though I'm chair of the committee, I've got to be honest, I forgot how many minutes does Anita have? 5. You've got 5 minutes. Yeah.
That's a long time.
Whenever you wish to start.
Okay, thank you. I'm Anita Punjard from AP Planning and Design, the agent for this application. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of this application for the erection of a single dwelling at One Beach Walk, Cromford. This proposal represents a modest, sustainable and policy-compliant form of development. The site lies within the defined settlement boundary of Cromford, a third-tier settlement identified in Policy S2 of the Derbyshire Dales local plan as suitable for housing growth, and therefore the principle of development is firmly established. The proposed dwelling has been carefully designed to match the scale, form and character of its surroundings. It reflects the vernacular appearance of One Beach Walk and other properties on the street. Using appropriate materials and proportions, importantly, it will assimilate well into the existing street scene, as confirmed by the planning officer's assessment and the conservation officer's comments. I wish to reassure members that all heritage and landscape concerns have been addressed. While the site sits adjacent to the Cromford Conservation Area and within the buffer zone of the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site, both the Conservation and World Heritage officers have raised no objections. They agree that the proposal will not result in any harm to the historic environment or the outstanding universal value of the World Heritage Site due to its sympathetic design and location within an existing residential area. Concerns have been raised locally about residential amenity and highways impacts. However, the proposed separation distances, boundary treatments and window placement have been carefully considered to protect privacy and prevent overlooking. Furthermore, the Highways Authority has reviewed the amended plans and raised no objections, confirming that the development provides adequate on-site parking and turning in accordance with the adopted standards. In respect of biodiversity, although the site qualifies for exemption from biodiversity net gain requirements due to its self-build nature and scale, the application includes conditions for biodiversity enhancements to be secured through a formal plan following advice from Derbyshire Wildlife Trust. Another critical point for members to consider today is the current shortfall in the Council's 5-year housing land supply. As you will be aware, where a local planning authority is unable to demonstrate a 5-year supply of deliverable housing sites, the presumption in favour of sustainable development tilted balance is engaged under paragraph 11D of the National Planning Policy Framework. This means that unless the adverse impacts of a proposal significantly and outweigh its benefits, planning permission should be granted. It is also important to note that even if the housing land supply issue were not a factor, the principle of development would still be fully supported under local policy. The site is located within the defined settlement boundary of Cromford, as identified in Policy S3 of the Derbyshire Dales local plan. Policy S2 actively supports new housing within the boundaries of such settlements, provided the scale and design of the development are appropriate to the character and function of the area. This proposal meets those criteria. In short, the application aligns fully with both the strategic aims of the local plan and the presumption in favour of sustainable development set out in national policy. The Council's current housing position only strengthens the case for approval. And this application provides a low impact, immediately deliverable contribution to local need without the complexities often associated with larger sites. Members, this application has been thoroughly assessed against local and national policy. It delivers a high quality new home on previously undeveloped garden land within a sustainable location, contributes positively to the local housing supply and causes no undue harm to the environment or neighbouring amenity. Given the proposal recommendations for approval and the strong alignment with planning policy, I respectfully ask that members support the officer's recommendation and approve the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll ask the case officer then, please, to outline to members this application, and then perhaps if members would like also then to ask questions, we'll proceed in that manner. So, Gina.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an application in Beach Walk in Cromford for an additional dwelling. It will be built in the existing garden of Beach Walk. Cromford is it's going to be located within the settlement framework of Cromford. So it is a boundary. It is in the it is somewhere we would support housing. It is adjacent the Cromford Conservation Area, and it's in the World Heritage Site buffer. Therefore, it's been reviewed by both the World Heritage Site consultation body at county and our own conservation officer. But the development's been done in such a way that it follows a vernacular form of the existing dwellings within the street scene, so it should be assimilate quite well into the street scene. There has been, as part of the application, we've sought additional plans, and we've also sought to make sure that because it's on a different land levelled site, so it goes up from the road, that I've sought to make sure that if there's any cut and fill needed, that will be shown on in plan form before any works are done, to make sure that this dwelling is only the same height as the neighbouring dwelling. We've also sought additional landscaping and things to the back to make sure any amenity impact on neighbours on Arkwright Gardens is mitigated as much as possible, and sought that the windows to the rear are also obscure glazed. So I think it is a development that I think it's matches in with the proportions of the other dwellings on the street scene, and it's been designed in a way that it assimilates quite well, and we've tried to seek biodiversity net gain opportunities on site. There will be some changes in terms of there is the parking provision for One Beach Walk was on the site where this dwelling will be, so I've also sought that we get final details of the movement of the parking provision for One Beach Walk as well as part of conditions. And I've also sought for a condition about construction hours, because I note it's in a built-up residential area, just to make sure that there's no it lessens any impact on neighbours and things while it's being built. So I've tried to use the conditions to try and make sure that it causes as little I suppose impact as possible during construction, but bear in mind it is for one dwelling. It shouldn't have the impact of a larger residential site. In terms of objection and things, it's been reviewed by the highways department to have no objections following the receipt of amended plans, and it's also, I say, been looked at by conservation, who have said that the design simulates well with the existing 1960s construction of the street scene as well. So I think that's why I've made a recommendation to grant in this case.
Okay, well, thank you, Gina, for outlining the report. Now it's open to members. Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Dobbs. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. When we were on site yesterday, there were two things that were noticeable. The first is that the new driveway for number 1 will have to be will be half a storey above ground level, or will be sloping down. Have you determined what the construction of that will be?
I've asked for sections for both the where the land level changes for for the new dwelling and for the parking area to the front of One Beach Walk to be submitted as a part of discharge conditions to make sure there's no it all aligns properly if it was minded for approval.
Right. And at the same time they will get a drop curve there because there's no drop.
I think that would be something that would be picked up by the county authority, just because it's not a classified road, but I would suggest that as part of any discharge of conditions, or we could add an informative on just to say that any if any drop curve they need to apply through the county basically. So I could add informative. That's no problem.
Thank you. And the other question was about the building, the shed behind the garage.
Yes.
The existing shed behind the garage, which is will be in the what's the word? In the garden of the new house. Doesn't form part of this application?
No, I've clarified, and the outbuildings are to be removed. I think they were shown on the
okay.
yes, but
Right,
they are to be removed as part of this application.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Councillor Peter Dobbs and then Councillor Melstrom.
Thank you, Chair. A question and then a question/comment, if that's permitted. The first one is that in the existing building there is a window which faces the new property. Now, from the point of view of the existing property, that would presumably be a loss of amenity because your window would be faced by a blank wall about a metre away. But because the applicant is, if you like, giving up this amenity, does then that cease to be a material consideration? That's my first question.
We would still need to consider the impact of the looking at a blank elevation. I think it would be difficult, I suppose, to I suppose you would be looking at a blank elevation as such. I suppose it would be seeking before it was sold, I suppose it was to suggest that there is a approval as such if we were minded to approve for something next door. Or whether that would be something that would be obscure glazed or something in the future. Yeah, I think it would be something that would have to be, I suppose, if it was sold off, any person that purchased One Beach Walk would have to acknowledge, I suppose, if we were minded to approve, that they would, that view wouldn't be there anymore in theory.
Thank you. What I really meant, is it something that we need to consider in the context of this application?
Yeah, it's a good question. Just to clarify, what's the concern that's raised in that question?
Peter, could you just redo the...
Sorry, there's a window on the top of the existing building, top left-hand corner, as it were. It'll now be it was looking out over the garden previously. There it is. That's the one.
Yeah, that'll be looking out on the side.
It will now be facing a blank wall.
While we're waiting for a response, it'll be Laura. Does anyone else want to ask anything? And then Councillor G. Anyone else at all?
So that's on the side of the existing property. And will that then just face onto the side of the new house?
Yeah. It just says here in its fake.
Thank you, Councillor. So the completely frank and honest answer is we don't actually know what that window, what room it serves. So that is a difficult question to answer. If that is of a serious and significant concern, we can defer the item and come back next month with that information, having sought the information, but we're not aware of the room that window lights.
Just to clarify, I mean, because the applicant is the owner of that property, in a sense I'm saying, well, he's given away that, but is it, and therefore perhaps we shouldn't consider it because he's saying it doesn't matter, but in the broader terms, do we consider buildings irrespective of ownership in this kind of context? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you have to consider the living conditions of the existing and proposed house on the basis that the new house will almost certainly be sold, and the existing house could be sold, and it could be buyer beware, but which is the same with a lot of new housing. If there's an amenity concern, that ought to be addressed through the application. So it really, I think it's a call for members whether they're comfortable, because we don't know what room the window opens into. We don't have a plan showing that, do we, Gina?
No.
No, there's no plan showing that. So we, at this, as we're talking tonight, we don't know what room that is. So if there's a consideration that the new house in proximity would cause a negative impact, then that may warrant further investigation at this stage. If there's any doubt, I think that would be my consideration. If members have a doubt and a concern about that, then the safest thing would be to defer it. Gina, go and revisit the site and speak to the agent and get the information.
If I could just add my second observation point. When I first saw this, I found it very hard to visualise this extra building on that plot, and I attempted to create a sort of impression of where it would be. It would be enormously helpful, and we have raised this point before, if we had some kind of visualisation of new properties in context, not just the elevation with nothing else shown, which was true in this particular case. A comment, really.
So like a street scene drawing showing it in context, that would be helpful, yes?
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
No, thank you, Peter. Councillor Maelstrom, please.
Thank you. Yes, I was just wondering whether the plans include any solar panels and or heat pumps. If not, should they?
They don't include them. The reason I didn't go out and particularly ask is sometimes in conservation areas it can be something that's more of a consideration in terms of appropriateness of having something like conjoined panels and things like that, but I can add a condition on if reminded to go for approval in that case. Yeah.
Do you have a second question, Laura, at all? You're okay. Councillor G and then Councillor Burford. Please, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Can you confirm, Jean, if same old situation again? Have Highways done a site visit, or is it a desktop exercise again? Because once this building's built, it's going to take quite a lot of view from vehicles coming up and round that corner, or even going back downhill, because one way or the other they've either got to back in or back out. So I know it's a little cul-de-sac as such, but it's going to cause quite a lot of issues backing out on that blind. It's going to make that corner even more blind than what it is now.
I'm not aware of, I know we've got comments from the county. I assume they visit the site, but it's not something I would know whether they do a desktop or actually visit the site.
Yeah. Do we feel it's appropriate though to be able to, most applications they have to draw on and be able to draw off?
Yeah.
Whereas this one, they're either backing in or backing out.
Yeah.
Do you find that acceptable in this situation?
I suppose in the grounds I would rely on Highways to a certain degree to give their view on that, but it is definitely something that perhaps needs to be considered.
Yeah. And going back to the second question, if I may. Going back to Councillor Hughes' question about the window, or Councillor Dobbs, whichever one it was that raised the question, could we not put an extra condition in that if the applicant sold that dwelling, that he remove the window and put either a Velux window or a sun tube in through the roof, so to eliminate that problem?
Gina, is that possible?
Yes,
Mark?
we could
Yeah, we
put
can
something like that on it.
Take that on board if
Yeah.
there's a recommendation of approval. Yeah, yeah. Councillor Burfoot and then Councillor G.
Thank you, Chair. Given what our development manager has said about the possibility of deferring this item, I'd like to propose that. I think the issue of this window is quite crucial, actually. Now, we used to live in a house similar to this, and my best guess would be that it's a landing window at the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
But number 1 Beach Walk is in the ownership of a landlord, so you know, if it was in the ownership of anybody else, I'm sure they would be putting in an objection to the fact that they were then going to be looking out onto a blank wall. So on that basis, I think we ought to defer it. So I'm going to propose that.
Does that find a seconder first? Councillor Lees, would you like to comment on that?
I'd second that, Chair, with the addition that we confirm with Highways that they are happy with vehicles enter the site forward or, you know, in one direction.
Yeah. We've got a motion before us. Councillor G, then Councillor Maelstrom and Councillor Slack. Councillor G.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to this issue of the window and what might happen in the future, because the way I see this is that, you know, in terms of our sort of local plan as it is at the moment, I think putting additional properties into, is it tier 3 Cromford, I'm not sure,
Yeah, tier 3.
into the community, that's a plus. And what we're really saying is that if somebody might buy this in the future, they'd be buying something that's different to what it is now. So it's up to them whether they buy it or not. And, you know, do we really need to defer this? Can't we just make a decision tonight and move on to the next item? This is just one property in Cromford that's going towards the other 628 we've got to build for the next 20 years every year. And, you know, this is putting additional beds into a tier 3 village, which is part of our sort of aspiration in the local plan for our sort of community's vibrancy, I would say. So I would probably say we should make a decision on this evening, because I don't think that anything's going to change at the next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor G. Councillor Maelstrom.
I was just going to say, if we are deferring it, and I'm not particularly concerned about the window personally, but if we were deferring it, could we include as a reason for the deferral to allow officers to clarify the solar panels and heat pump provision and whether there is any conservation area objection to that being included?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Slack. Then Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at this window, it looks to be a landing window. I wonder if you noticed, Gina, when you've been up, have all the others got the same window in, facing each block of gable end? Have you noticed it? If the others have got that window?
I do think it is probably a landing window, but I don't want to suggest it is without checking again.
It'll be uniform design, won't it, for all the properties?
Yeah.
So that window could possibly be on every gable end.
Yeah, because I think the buildings are of a similar nature.
Yeah,
but I
the
wouldn't
others
want
will probably be
to
looking
suggest
at a blank
something it wasn't. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Boynton.
I'm not sure this window issue is particularly interesting or important. Our house, a 160-year-old house, it has a window looking out onto the next door neighbour's blank wall about a metre away. It's a bedroom window, doesn't cause us any problems. It's buyer beware. I don't think it's a material planning consideration whatsoever. I don't think we should be. I think Stuart's point about the Highways Authority and whether they've seen the site and whether they're happy about reversing off. I brought it up at the site meeting, and the officer then at the site meeting said that, well, the Highways hasn't objected to it. So if Highways haven't objected, what can we do? If we go back to Highways, will they go and see? Will they change their? I don't believe they will. So I'm not in favour of this, and I think we can condition Laura's points about heat pumps and solar panels. So again, I don't think we need to have a deferral. I think we need to get through business, not put things off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hughes. John.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor G, and I think we can deal with this tonight. The actual plot of land that it's going to be on is bigger than the plot that's left behind, if you like, from the original house. I do take on board the traffic situation reversing out, but at the end of the day, it's a cul-de-sac. Traffic shouldn't be travelling at any speed whatsoever up there. So I think we can perhaps take on board Highways' decision that there isn't an issue there. With regards to the heat source pumps, the type of property that's planned is what you might call an affordable house, and I think putting heat pumps on it is going to put the price up, whereas if this is granted, we've got a property which is presumably in the range of a lot of people to purchase. So I think I'm going to go with Councillor G and I think we should sort it tonight.
Can we test them, members? Because if the motion falls, we can then put forward approval. So, members, the motion is to defer the application for the various reasons. All those in favour of deferral, please show. So that's 2. Against? That appears to be unanimous then. Thank you. So we now need a proposer and seconder for approval of the officer's recommendation. Councillor Slack.
I'll be with you.
And Councillor G has seconded it. In the light of that, does anyone wish to say anything further? Councillor Maelstrom.
Again, just about the solar panels and heat pump, if they could be conditioned. I saw a few nods, so I imagine that might find approval with other members.
Yeah. Councillor Hughes. Yeah, that's been seconded. Can that be included, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Councillor Lees.
Can we have a detail of the car park, the retaining wall at the front of the existing property? Because when you put the picture back up again, the front of the car looks very close to the front door of the house. It looks like it wants to go in through the front door. So I think it's going to be very tight to get a vehicle and a retaining wall and the path to the front door in that space. So if we could have a detail of that before construction,
structures, yeah.
if that's the case. Thank you.
So on the basis of that, all those in favour, please show. Against? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. So the motion is carried and approval has been granted. Thank you. So we turn to our third application now, which is on pages 45 to 60. We have 2 speakers. Find your stuff. Thank you. The first speaker is Councillor Wendy. Is it Alum? Thank you, Wendy, who is the chairperson of Snelston Parish Council, to comment on this application. She has 3 minutes. Is it 5? Is it 3 or 5 minutes?
Thank you, Chair.
3 minutes.
It's Wendy. I just want to clarify the time.
3 minutes.
It is 3 minutes.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Thank you. I should like to say that the changes the applicants have made in response to local concerns regarding the construct are much appreciated. However, I should like to make one observation. Representations were raised regarding highway safety on Littlefield Lane, and this is noted in 6.2 of the Planning Officer's report. The concern relates to the narrowness of the lane and the likely influx of parking of heavy lorries and tradesmen's vehicles during demolition and construction work, some of which we have to assume will be parking and manoeuvring on Littlefield Lane. Councillors will remember from the site visit the lane is quite restrictive, the house opposite Littlefields being built right against the narrow verge. The road, in fact, at the current and proposed entrances measures 3.8 metres or 12.5 feet. But at the, let me start that again. The tar-macadam width at the two entrances measures approximately 4.3 metres or 14 feet 1 inch. But at the narrow part at the site's western boundary, it measures 3.8 metres or 12 foot 6 inches, which isn't very wide, obviously. It is our concern that this will be a potential situation to be managed, and could this be covered in the conditions for approval? Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for taking time to come to address the committee tonight. I'll ask then the applicant's agent, please, to now comment, and that is Andrew Wakin. Right. I do apologise, Mr.
No problem.
Watkin. You've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, hello everyone. Right. So you will have noticed that there are some updates for this in the late submissions. These are only affecting the design and access statement and a couple of minor points in the case officer's report. These updates stem from us revising some of the plans in the light of responses from Snelston residents. We've softened the building's appearance by changing to traditional Staffordshire blue roof tiles. We've reduced the size and height of the garage and moved it further from the road, and we've improved road safety by changing the vehicle entrance to a cattle grid to avoid the need to stop outside the gated entrance. The second public consultation following these revisions resulted in 4 objections being withdrawn and more support appearing. The net result is there are now over twice as many supporting as objecting, 14 to 6. Then the Conservation Officer's report addressed most of the remaining objections raised. They note that the existing dwelling is not considered to make a positive contribution to the area. And with regard to the form, massing and design, the Conservation Officer also stated that any attempt to design something truly in keeping in form, materiality and design detailing would be extremely difficult to achieve with any degree of authenticity, most likely resulting in a pastiche replica which would detract from the architectural quality of the village and the special character of the Snelston Conservation Area. And they also said the current design does not try to replicate what is existing and is not pastiche, but does respond to the local context in form and roofscape. As you saw yesterday, the site is right on the periphery of the village and is outside the settlement area and largely secluded from it. The conservation report says the proposed development site is the first developed plot of land within the western boundary of the conservation area, with Elms Farm barn range extending opposite. And it continues with, it is fortunately sited, meaning that the contemporary design will not dilute the architecturally historic core of the village. We suggest that there are also some other important considerations. The design is in line with the Council's climate change SPD adopted in July 21. It uses less energy, increases energy efficiency and promotes renewables. The design also reflects the Town and Country Planning Association's Healthy Homes principles described in the Association's September 24 journal. As such, the design demonstrates increased resilience to climate change. This means, when compared to standard construction practices, that the proposed design will meet the highest energy efficiency standards and will have both a much lower carbon footprint in construction and a much lower carbon footprint in use. Yesterday, you asked a question about the house footprint. I've checked the plans and can confirm that the footprint of the 2023 approved application with its large rear extension was 135 square metres. Our proposal is 140, so it's practically the same. We can also confirm that the entrance arrangements, the vehicle entrance arrangements on this application are exactly the same as those in the already granted application of 2023. So I'd like to end just with a last quote from the Conservation Report. The submitted plans have responded to the pre-application advice and local concerns and have resulted in a design of dwelling which is likely to enhance the special character of the conservation area. And for my wife and me, this proposal converts an unloved building into a home fit for the 21st century. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Watkin. So I'll invite now the case officer, please, to present this to members, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting this item. So, this is an application for a replacement dwelling house in Snelston at Elms Farm Cottage. The site is located within the Snelston Conservation Area, and as such the application has been considered by the Conservation Officer. It's going to replace, let's say, existing dwelling house, which is a 1.5 storey cottage style dwelling house with a modular replacement dwelling with a more contemporary design, and a garage as well on site, which is providing further parking provision on site, and it will be sited in a similar siting to the existing dwelling. In terms of policy, replacement dwellings are acceptable in principle. In terms of the design of it, which has been reviewed by the Conservation Officer, the design is seen as being, although more contemporary, may preserve and enhance the conservation area. It's also been looked at in terms of amenity and living conditions which are considered satisfactory. And I know also the sustainable materials and opportunities have been made on site, and it's also been removed by the Highway Authority, who have no objection, with access being to the site being taken from a new access point from Littlefield Lane. So that's the breakdown of the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gina. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of points, really. The first is that there are two conditions, 9 and 10, and 10 is actually already included in 9, so I suggest we delete 10, but perhaps paraphrase the reasons, 2 sets of reasons, so that we get a consistent set. I think one is the reason for 10 could just be substitute for the reason for 9, but 9 is more comprehensive than 10. In terms of the access, that's going to be built before. The new access is going to be built, and the old access closed down before any other work on the property. So, does this gets rid of the problem about congestion on the lane? Does it not?
Gina, can you respond, please?
Answer your questions on this one.
Regarding that.
So I attended the site visit, so it might be easier if I answer some of the questions. Yes, the intention is that the existing access is closed off and the new one is created.
Right, so that will get rid of the problem of vehicular movement on the road, because the vehicles will be able to drive straight off the road onto the site and turn around on the site and come back off again through the new entrance.
Yes, we can show that plan up on the screen.
Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the construction, Gina, the original bungalow was all brick. Now there's a wood being placed in it. Is it going out of character, or is it to reflect the building at the other side of the road?
I'll answer that one as well, Chair. I think we sort of highlighted, and the applicant has as well, the Conservation Officer's comments, and that she was happy that it takes this sort of agricultural look from the surrounding buildings rather than the brick building that's there at the moment could be in any sense built anywhere. It isn't reflective of the local area. So in that respect, it was sort of seen as an improvement and an enhancement to the conservation area.
Thank you.
Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's just a quick one on the design of it, basically. The upstairs windows, it refers to them being narrow windows. Can you just confirm what width the upstairs windows are? Because it's very difficult on an iPad to... Have you got a measurement anywhere of the windows? What width they are?
It might take us a minute because there's screenshots in the presentation, but we'll have to get the PDFs up.
Yeah, and my other one is a cross section as well. Have you got a cross section of through the building because of the height of the Velux windows in the roof? It just concerns me on the design. It's all right having a plan in front of you, but if it doesn't conform to building regs and fire regs, it's no point.
We've certainly got the side elevations that will show the profile of the dormer. We can measure.
Yeah, it's not the dormer, it's some of the other windows that are very narrow that it doesn't actually say, it just says narrow windows. It doesn't say whether they're 400 wide, 600 wide or whatever they are, but if they're not of a certain width, the design's going to fail because it's not going to comply. I've even come prepared with my scale rule because I thought you'd say you haven't got a scale ruler. I couldn't find anything on the iPad that actually gives you a width of the window. I couldn't scale it off because of the iPad, basically. It just says narrow windows. But anyway, I could what do you call it, explain my concern is that if the window hasn't got a clear opening when it's opened of 450 millimetres and is more than 1100 millimetres off the floor, it won't comply with the building regulations and the fire regulations. So if you've got a Velux window that's only more than 1100 high, it won't provide a means of escape. So it'll fail on the height that it is on the plan.
So can officers check and ensure what Councillor Lees is saying, these things do actually comply, these windows?
You know, it might mean a case that they might be looking at a different scenario where the Veluxes might need to be lowered or the windows might need to be widened a bit, which is going to give it a different appearance.
Is it just these ones at the top? Yeah, this is 1 to 100, 0.75.
Was it all first floor windows or particular?
It's all first floor windows basically regarding the escape route and the building regs basically. Because it's no good drawing a narrow window if it's not going to comply. If we need to stipulate it's got to be more than 450 mil and less than 600 mil, that's fair enough, but it needs to be a size explained.
Stuart, bearing in mind what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you at all, while you're perhaps thinking about that, can I just bring in Councillor G and then Councillor Maelstrom, and it may be that this might be a legitimate reason to defer the application until we've got the full facts. Councillor G.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to bow down to Stuart's expertise on this but on the basis of the actual thing I see there, it looks wonderful. And again, it's an addition to our local plan. I presume any architect who's built a specification for a building like that would surely fall in line with building regulations, and that would have to be how it was built, in line with building regulations, because otherwise it's a very bad architect and I wouldn't pay him. But the obviously thing looks like an addition that I could support, so yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Maelstrom.
Well, yes, similarly on the building regs point, I'm not sure that that's really our function here. There could be any number of issues in this design, the plumbing, the wiring, that are not building regulations compliant, and we can't be expected to spot and address that. So before we go down a rabbit hole here, is building regs compliance a planning issue that we need to address?
Rose.
No, it's not a planning issue. It's a two-stage process. So you always go through planning first and then building regs. You would expect that most architects would design the planning drawings to comply with building regs. Otherwise, it makes life very difficult for them.
Thank you. In the light of that, Stuart, are you confident that what's been related, you're not? Go on.
No, I'm not. I mean, we've gone through all this trouble of getting plans drawn up, and surely we should have a size or a scale that we can scale these off. I know architects should know, most of them do know, but it does happen that they don't know, and if it isn't right, it's going to affect the appearance of the building, either roof line wise or making the windows wider.
Now, can we move an approval on the basis, with an addendum, that the windows are checked and comply with
them, if I may come back, Chair, with them being set back in a deep reveal, a window is only going to open square. It's not going to open past the reveal. So it's going to reduce that opening width down by the thickness of whatever that opening light is. So it reduces the opening size, in effect, because it's set back well into the reveal.
Right. Councillor Dobbs.
Sorry, Chair, I was going to move on. So if there's any more questions, can I do?
Please.
I'm proposing that we actually move this with officer recommendations. I mean, I'm seeing what the technology is doing, and I think we have adequate evidence with assuming a 50% error is not going to happen, that they are going to be compliant with what Stuart has suggested as building regs. And it's a structure actually I took some time to get used to, but I can see entirely the logic of why it's like this, and take the point of how it's taken up the sort of vernacular from the adapted farm building opposite. So I'm happy to propose this with officer recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Does that find a seconder, please? Councillor Hughes.
Yes, Chair. I have one reservation. I'm not sure whether it's a serious reservation or not, and it's the vertical planking rather than the horizontal planking. Yeah. In some respects, if it was going to mirror the building opposite, it would have to have horizontal planking, but I recognise that vertical planking may be more sustainable in terms of the water runoff and so on. It's less likely for water to get into the building.
It's been moved and seconded. Would other members now like to speak in terms of approving or not approving? Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say this seems like a sensible design. I particularly want to commend the applicant for your engagement with the local community, and I would like to wish that more applicants and developers would do the same.
You, Councillor Slack?
We could move it, Chair, and then put a condition in, as these windows have got to apply to safety. It's as simple as that, isn't it, really? Yeah. So, rather than defer it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We can't condition other legislation, so it will have to meet building regulations. And I've listened to the concerns. If it transpired, they come back and they want completely different windows, then we'll bring it back to committee, or we certainly won't issue an approval if it then transpired something different. But from what we've seen, it looks like they will comply with building regs. But that's entirely separate legislation, so we couldn't condition that on a planning application. Thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour that we approve the application, please show. Against? Abstentions? So that was in fact unanimous. Thank you, members. Thank you very much. We move then on to the final part of the agenda tonight, which is the Planning Appeals Progress Report. There's some serious stuff contained in here. Now, is there anything particular that members would like? Certainly I'd like, perhaps Mark, do you wish to comment on one of the appeal decisions?
Thank you, Chair. So in general, with appeal decisions and ongoing appeals, members are very welcome and we'd encourage you to come and speak to officers, drop us a line or come into the planning office and ask for updates and ask how the appeals are going on. It's actually quite it's quite motivating, and it's nice for officers to see members take an interest in the appeals as they progress. The one that particularly stands out is Gritstone Road at Matlock, which is sort of getting towards the final stages. We had a very productive internal meeting last week, which involved the Chief Executive, ward members and planning officers, and we discussed that in quite some depth, and following members expressing still having some quite serious concerns, but everyone having to respect the fact that the council's taken a position of neutrality on the appeal. We're going to be briefing the barrister in detail about the local concerns and member concerns that need to be conveyed to the inspector in the closing statement, so that they are fully aware of concerns, whilst trying to keep that very delicate position of actually being neutral, so don't open the council up to criticism. And I think that was a productive meeting. That we got some very detailed comments from members which followed, which have already been sent on to the barristers' chambers for the barrister to incorporate into their closing. So that's a good example of very positive working between members and officers to sort of try and seek the best possible outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from members? If not, I need someone to move and second the report be noted. Councillor Hughes.
Are we dealing with the enforcement case at this stage? It doesn't seem to be a separate agenda item, that's all.
Right, I do apologise. Can we just first of all then, will someone move the planning appeals that are just listed, the report?
Happy to move that we note them, Chair.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Maelstrom. All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. So we then move to the actual appeals then. So, Councillor Dobbs, do you wish to... anything specific?
Sorry, Chair, what context are we... Which item are we now in?
The actual appeal decisions.
Oh.
You don't, right. Councillor Lees.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, I've got a bit lost here. Are we dealing with the enforcement reference number ENF 20/0003 as a separate issue?
Right, I do apologise. Which page?
Because we've got to decide on we've got choices, options, should I say.
Right. So we have to...
Chair, if I can just comment, please, really quickly. So I think that what members are asking is, have we dealt with appeals and do we agree the appeal report? And then the enforcement case, the front cover does say it's sensitive and it's to be determined in private. So I think we'd have to exclude members of the public at this stage.
I do apologise to the public. At this point, I do have to ask you to vacate the chamber. Thank you for taking the time to come, and we'll just have a moment. Shall we just have a minute or two, a comfort break, if members want to get some water or go to the toilet, etc., and then we'll reconvene. So,
Chair, do we need technically to vote to exclude?
right. Would someone, Peter? Would you kindly move that? It's been seconded by Councillor Hughes. All in favour? Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you. I'm genuinely confused.
Yeah,
so,
it's
what?
not an agenda item because it's got to be done in private. So it's not on the agenda, but it's
That's